everybody, we're here and ready to do the stitching, my favorite part of any quilt.
I love this, Mom. So explain to me how you decide your stitch order with the colors and what pieces you're going to stitch when.
Well, I stitch in the order that I place them down. So in other words, with the stitch order we give you, or with your placement guide, we give you numbers on your pattern and we suggest that you iron down piece number 1, then number 2, etc. So that's the same order that we're going to do when we do our stitching. In this case, we're going to start with the green, which is the stem and the leaves, and we're going to stitch that in the sulky 1177 avocado. And then we'll move on to the pink, and then you'll move on to the blue for your blue flower. And lastly, on the flowers, you'll stitch the gold centers, in the butterfly gold, which is one of my favorite yellows.
That makes sense, Mom. So we're always following the numbers of the placement guide, even when we're stitching.
Absolutely.
But once you have a thread color loaded on your machine, do you just stick with it even if you have a jump of 10 numbers?
I do, unless, well, and especially in this pattern, yes, you can stitch all of the green on all of your blocks if you want to.
Oh, you're very smart. So you can stitch all of your blocks the same color and then jump to the next thread color and go through.
Because these blocks are all essentially the same. So you could stitch the 2 blocks that have the pink and blue flowers and stitch all the green on it, and then stitch all the green on the orange and turquoise flowers.
I love it. Well, Mom, I can't wait to see you share your tips. So we're starting with avocado, and you're going to stitch pieces 1 through 6, and we're going to do a buttonhole stitch.
That's right. So everybody has chosen their favorite stitch on their machine, because we talked about that a little bit earlier. So you know which stitch your machine is going to do that you like. But one thing that helps when you do your stitching is to use a stabilizer. Now the stabilizer that I like to use is the Sulky Tear Easy, which is if you can see right here, it's a very lightweight stabilizer. It kind of crinkles and sounds like paper, but it really isn't paper. It's sort of like I don't know, some kind of fibers in there.
Like a stabilizer.
It's a stabilizer, basically. Yes, it's a stabilizer. This is very helpful. It helps the machine and it helps your stitches to look nicer.
If you don't use a stabilizer, to me, your fabric sometimes can get kind of sucked down into your feed dog, and then your stitches distort.
It can get a little puckery at times. Now, I cut a piece that's a little bit larger than the applique area, so it's not exactly the same size as this square, which I believe is 14 inches square. Is that what we were doing, Brittany?
It is. When we trim it down, eventually after stitching, it'll trim down to 12.5 inches. But right now, we're at approximately 14 inches.
So we place the stabilizer underneath, and if you have one that comes on a roll like this does, I find it easier if you lay it down so that the roll is going to come up towards your applique piece.
It kind of hugs your fabric.
So it sort of hugs your fabric a little bit, and I float it under here. You don't have to baste it down or anything like that. You're going to be stitching right through it, and it's going to work perfectly. And the reason I like this sulky so much, and trust me ladies and gentlemen, I have searched long and far for the perfect thing to use as a stabilizer, and I wanted one that you could tear it away or remove easily without distorting your stitches. And this is I find to be the best thing that I can find to use right now. So when you start, the first piece that we lay down, piece number 1, is our leaf, which you can tell is underneath your stem. Can everybody see that, Brittany?
We can. Let me zoom in for everybody. Okay. There we go.
Okay, so you see it's underneath. Now where you want to start when you're going to do a buttonhole stitch, you want to start at a junction. You don't want to start like in the middle of the side, because when you're making evenly spaced stitches, your machine's doing that for you. But when it comes to round to the end to meet, it may not be exactly, like if your stitch length is 2, it may not come out exactly like that. You might have one just really close, or it might be a little bit further and you can't get another stitch in there. So it's best to start at a junction. Now, I know that my machine is going to travel a certain direction, and I personally find it easiest to stitch when I have less fabric inside the throat of my machine. So I typically will start somewhere that gives me an easier beginning, so to speak. So I'm going to start right here where this leaf meets this stem, okay? And so I have my open toe foot on. My needle is threaded with the 30 weight. I have 50 weight thread in my bobbin, and I'm going to lower my feed dogs. And I hope my arm isn't distorting things too much. Am I, Brittany?
You're good right now.
Okay, I've got my needle. If you can see this, it's coming right into that point there.
So not piercing the fabric, just a needle length away.
Just the width of the needle to the side. We're going to actually be laying down stitch on the outside edge of this, and then it's going to bite into your applique piece. And that's really how you want to do it. So this machine is set up on very slow, I hope. And I use the push button, so I'm just going to give this a little push, and we'll let it get started. Can you all see this?
Well, your fingers are a little bit in the way. Sorry.
My fingers are in the way. Sorry, you guys, it's really difficult to get.
You keep sewing. I'm gonna kind of move the camera, everybody.
Okay, sorry. And this is going a little faster than I'd like for everybody to be able to see it good. Okay. Try to keep my hand out of the way. Can you see how we're getting a nice, it's piercing right on the outside edge, it's biting in, and then it's coming right back out. Get a nice little rhythm, and you can really get used to your machine. Now when you come to an area like this, you're going to have to pivot a lot, and I have the knee lift on this machine. If you noticed, it pivoted without me doing that, which is so nice. And so I'm going to be taking some individual stitches. Is my hand too much in the way, Brittany?
You're good right now. We're in the perfect position.
Okay, and so I'm going to pivot again. I'm going to come right here, and
oh, look at that beautiful spot.
It's right at the edge.
Now, why are you turning it right now? You know your machine is going to bite in.
It's going to bite in, and I want it to bite in right here. I know that I can't get to the very tip of this and be in the right spot. See there? It did pretty good though. Let me get these things.
That was pretty perfect.
Let me get these out of the way. Okay, now we're gonna move on down. Oops, with this. See, I didn't pay close enough attention, you guys. I'll show you what I mean in a minute when we get done with this one.
To me, the secret to sewing machine applique is knowing the rhythm of your machine, knowing what your machine is going to do next.
Absolutely. It's like having a little hula dance with your machine. You know, I used to joke when I was doing free motion long arm quilting that I would say, oh, I just have to put on my little Hawaiian music and do my little hula dance, and then I can get it going good and just kind of get in the little rhythm and just pleasant
sway with the machine.
Little happy little groove getting on there. And of course you can do whatever music you like. I like all kinds of music, but I can't hula for let's just say
the hula hoop wouldn't stay up.
No, I'm not. No, I meant Hawaiian hula. I am not getting in a grass skirt. Let me just tell you, this midriff isn't showing anywhere either. So, here we go. I'm going to pivot a little bit more. Now, this is a real gentle curve on this leaf. So if you noticed, I just was able to kind of pivot it by just moving the fabric a little bit. I didn't have to stop on a circle or other things. You really have to pay close attention, and you want to pivot with your needle down like that. I want to make sure I'm going to come right to the edge here. Now I do have a tack stitch here on this machine. I'm going to tack it, but I think what this machine is going to do now, you guys, third time I've used this particular one, I think it's going to try to take another stitch, which if it does, it's going to make me upset. Yep, that's not what I want. So I'm just going to cut it right here.
But again, this is part of knowing if your machine is going to do that or not.
Yep, knowing your machine. So I am just going to pull that out, and then I'm going to put it, I'm trying not to get my hand under here. I have to move my needle down. Is my arm too much in the way?
You're perfect, Mom.
Okay. All right, now here we go. Let's see if I can program this tack. And I think I can program to cut. So we might get some magic happening here, you guys. We'll see. All right, so here we go. See, it's making a tack stitch at the beginning, which is really helpful with machine applique because it'll secure your thread a little bit better for you, unless you want to do a tiny little stitch manually to tack it yourself, which is aggravating because then
So
you
right
have
now
to,
you just lifted. Just want to let everyone know.
yeah, I lifted the foot.
So you're pivoting because you always want your stitches to be perpendicular to the edge of your piece.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It really, you know, that's how it should look. Like particularly with the circle, I always say, you know, if anybody's looked at my stitch tips, if you don't pivot, you end up with a slant. Eventually it will slant. And that's not exactly as becoming as something coming straight in. Now when you go this slowly, you can actually, you know, really see and make sure your thread is coming straight along the edge of the outer edge of the applique piece. I hope I'm not blocking everything with my finger.
You're good.
Okay, so when you get close to the end, you want to kind of slow down a whole lot, if you know, so that you can get your stitch right where you want it. Now I'm going to pivot this right here. Now I know it's going to bite in. Ideally, you want it to bite through the center of that point. So here we go, right there and there. Now when I do this, it's going to come forward one stitch. And now I want to pivot again, which is what I did not do so well over here. Let me see. Can you guys see? Can they see this?
Hold on. Get into position. I'll move the camera. Oh, we see it. Wait, come back.
Wait. Let me see. Hang on, you guys. I'll show them at the end. I'll show you at the end what
The
I mean.
suspense, everyone. You'll see.
Yeah, you'll see what's not exactly. And actually, it doesn't look as bad as I thought it was going to look. So here we go. We're going to finish on this leaf. Come right down here. And any curve you have, like this, you want to make sure that you stop on the outer edge and then pivot. And sometimes you have to do an awful lot of pivoting. Like that. I want it to be perpendicular.
So you use a knee lift to lift your presser foot?
I did.
Or you can just actually lift your presser foot.
Yeah, a lot of times you're just sticking your hand in there, which is what I did a lot of times. You know, if I don't have a knee lift on my machine, or I don't put it on, because, and actually I'll tell you guys, my mother, she worked in a Bernina store when I was a teenager, and she had the top of the line Bernina way back then, which was, it was an 830, but it certainly wasn't like the 830s they have now, because I'll tell you, it was like 45 years ago, 46, and she would tell us constantly, why don't you use the knee lift? No, I don't like it. Okay, so I'm going to tell this to tack, and I think it's going to do my nasty little stitch. No, it did it just right. Now it should cut it. Oh,
It did it then.
what the heck?
Okay, just cut. There you go. Everyone, when you're filming, sometimes
things
your
happen.
machine does silly things.
But I will tell you, because this number, this 1177 matches this fabric so perfectly, you really can't tell that I did that. And probably when I come down with my straight stitch here on this stem, you won't be able to see it. But I wish I hadn't done that. But as you can tell, it happens all the time. You know, stuff happens.
Well, once you really practice with your machine, you'll be fine. You'll know what it's gonna do.
Now, can you see this?
Will you hold it down just a little? There we go.
Okay.
You stay still and I'll zoom to you.
Okay, and I'll use my little pointer of my tweezers here. See that little stitch coming out there?
Sure.
It's barely, you can barely see it.
We're gonna believe you that you made a mistake, but y'all comment and tell us. Do you see it? I don't.
You don't see it? Okay, well, it's there. It's there.
We
And then
believe you.
something else I want to point out too is that when you are doing your stems, you want to stitch, okay, you know,
Let's pick a spot.
I'm trying. Can we see the center of the stem here?
Yes.
Okay, so this stem right here going this direction is over the top of this one. So you want to stitch the one underneath first.
Also, just stitch in numerical order.
That. But
Yeah.
But this is true for, you know, if you're stitching some other pattern besides this one. I want everyone to know how to do other things
But what's
too.
on top will also always be a bigger number.
but
not
a lot
all
of patterns are numbered.
That's
so
true, everybody.
it's
We
just
number for you.
It's just basic machine applique. So at any rate, that's the reason why, is because this one's on top, so you want to make sure you stitch that one underneath first, and this is on top.
So you go from lowest layer to highest layer.
Yes. Brittany always can make everything very succinct, and I'm the one that chitter chatters all the time about everything. Okay, so that one, I wish I'd have started on the pink one. I don't know how I ended up starting on the blue one, but I did. I was intended to start on the pink, which would have brought my straight stitch down all the way.
A lot of chitter chatter.
Chitter chatter. Here I go with my chitter chatter.
I hope y'all are having fun stitching while you're watching this, because we're having fun filming it for you.
Hey, you know, it's all got to be fun. So I'm going to show you how to stitch a straight line, which is, wow, way easier than doing a curve. But doing a straight line is super simple. But we want to make sure that this is going to do our tack at the beginning, and it's going to hopefully, I don't know how.
Explain how you know if your machine can do that.
Well,
because I don't know.
All machines are different. This machine has, can you see
yeah,
this?
I'm going over. We see the screen.
Well, on this particular machine, they make it very simple. It says tack and cut. But the tack symbol is this little circle with another circle around it, and that means tack because it's going to stitch in place. So if you have a stitch on your machine that will stitch in place, that's your tack stitch.
I'm very glad I asked the question of how to know.
Aren't you? Hey, this is how you learn. I'm trying to think how it looks on other machines that I have. I really can't tell you right now.
I should admit this, I only recently learned machines will do the automatic tacking and cutting as part of the beginning and end.
Did you?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, it's really convenient. I mean, you know, one of the things that I think a lot of us are guilty of, we get a brand new machine, or even our first machine or whatever, and we're so excited to start sewing. And if you're quilting, all you really need to do is, you know, maybe a straight stitch. And when you branch into machine applique, you need to know your buttonhole stitch, etc. And I think that we get used to doing just what we know how to do, and we really should spend some time with our machines and actually play with them and learn things by maybe reading the directions in the book. You know, that's very
exciting.
Well, it's fun.
It is.
It can be fun.
I agree. I'm agreeing.
With the way you said exciting, girls.
I was joking.
It's fun, but you know, usually we're just more into making our projects, so we don't actually spend the time to do that, which is why I encouraged you to test out the different stitches you might have on your machine and actually write it down and maybe keep a little reference to have. So anyway, hopefully this little machine.
Or you know what, I mean, there's YouTube videos about the machine you have. You can have other people show you what they've played with.
Yes, in this modern day and age, there are YouTube videos for everything.
That's what I wouldn't read the manual. I'd go to YouTube. We're silly in this video, y'all.
Okay, so anyway.
Let's sew a straight line.
Let's sew a straight line. Oh, this is really going to be stimulating. Let's go.
Let me zoom in. I don't want anybody to miss anything.
And you know, I had that tack stitch and it didn't tack.
It didn't do it.
Maybe I should read.
You might have pushed it again.
Maybe I should read the manual. But when you're doing something as simple as a straight line, I know you can actually speed your machine up, because I feel that you can probably guide it in a straight line without having to do any pivoting, of course. That was my little joke. Yeah, it went over real good, didn't it? But this will, you know, speed it up and you can get it done a little bit quicker.
But the important thing is your needle is staying right on the edge of your fabric, but not actually piercing the fabric. Only the bite in is piercing your fabric.
Yep. And when you get close to the end, you may want to do simple little one stitch at a time. I'm not doing this tack because I don't trust this machine. I'm just going to cut it. It's going to do what I don't want it to do again, you know.
Because we're filming.
Yeah, well, because maybe I should play with this a little bit more. It's a great machine.
Now, your other machine that you have that you got, well, I guess it's not new anymore, but the newest, I really like.
Yes, I bought it last fall, maybe. I guess maybe I've had it about a year.
October.
I've had it almost a year. It's a Janome Continental M7. I absolutely love that machine. The throat space on it is like from here to here. It's huge. It's It's big. It's a great machine. And this machine right here, this Eversone Sparrow QE, is a great machine too, and especially
Absolutely.
if it were a time when we could go take classes. And I guess people are getting back to starting to go to retreats and things. This would be a great one to take because it only weighs like 14 pounds. It's very lightweight, but it does an excellent buttonhole stitch. So it's a good one to take, and the price point isn't very
I think
outrageous.
this would be a great home machine too, especially if you're new and you don't want to invest in a
Exactly.
Continental.
Yeah. Oh, and there's so many machines in between. I mean, you know, goodness knows I have.
Well, let's just talk about
lot.
sewing and not how many machines you
So
have.
we've done the buttonhole stitch here, 1 through 6, and the next thing on our stitch order is our hot pink for the flower.
Oh, and now you're going to show us the straight stitch applique.
Yes, now there's different stitches you can do with applique, and if you love your buttonhole stitch and you want a buttonhole around your flower, you certainly can do that, but I chose on this one to try to make it a little bit
More approachable.
approachable for everyone, and we decided to do a straight stitch here. And my sister actually stitched the original quilt for me, so she was happy that I said that too.
You'll change your thread color.
Of course I am right now.
Oh, I was getting scared you're going to start sewing.
And because of the stitch order number, which I don't know if this is 7, 8, or 9, but whatever the pink is,
7, I believe.
7, it's underneath the yellow, so we're going to stitch this one next, but it's on top of the green stem, and ideally we would have stitched the other side of this stem, but I'm not going to do that right
It's
now.
like a cooking show. Pretend it's done.
Pretend it's done. Yes.
We're not quite as fancy as Martha Stewart, where the other turkey comes out of the oven, like the other block stitched comes out.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been not that prepared ahead. Okay, so the pink is number 1109, which is called Hot Pink. It's a hot pink, more or less. I like this pink. I think it's a pretty color.
We use it a lot. It's one of our core colors.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Fun fact, if you didn't know that, we have 21 core colors.
And also, you guys, pay attention with your sewing machine. They generally have the way that they prefer that you thread your machine as far as where your thread comes off the spool. On this particular machine, it's a horizontal spool pin. Can they see that?
Yeah.
And you see that it's coming off the bottom. So I'm going to do that because if I pull it where it's coming off the top, it's not going to stitch as nicely. So you want to just try to cooperate with your machine. You know, if you want somebody to do some work for you, make them happy, right?
Makes the machine happy.
Make the machine happy. So we're going to thread this little guy real quick. And again, this is 30 weight in the top. And also, I don't know if I said this the other day. I think I may have. But just a little reminder, if you have a thread, a needle threader on your machine, with the 30 weight threads, it's not always the best to use your needle threader. If you find that your needle threader isn't working so great, it may be because you've been using a really thick thread and it just doesn't pull it in as well. But I think it's really designed for more like a 40 or 50 weight. This is just a little thick.
That's some pretty impressive threading.
Thank you. And I don't have my bifocals on.
Yeah.
Even more impressive. How about that?
I was very impressed with that.
Okay, so now I'm going to switch back to a straight stitch, which of course in this particular case is number 1. Let's get, oops, I passed it. I passed it again. Mercy. Where is it?
I would go past, like, to the left more.
Let's do this. 1. Okay, in this machine, stitch number 1 puts it way over. Don't you see where it is way over here? I like it in the middle. I'm used to it in the middle.
I don't know if I caught that for everybody, but she moved her needle space.
I'm talking about the needle reference actually. And truly, on this we're going to be stitching approximately 1/8 of an inch away. We want to try to be consistent on this as we come around. Let me grab this quilt and I can show how it looks here. Oops, I knew I was going to do that.
Show us.
I'm trying.
Let me put it in position. Let me zoom out. Everybody remember, we sew and we're not videographers, so let me come down. There we go.
Okay, so can we see right here?
We sure can.
Okay, so we're coming down here and we're like about 1/8 of an inch away. See how it's coming around? On each of these, it's a straight stitch. Now this is secure on here because we straight stitched it, and then of course when you do your quilting or have it quilted or whatever, however you choose to finish it, it further enhances and keeps your fabric down neat. So this is okay to do a straight stitch and not stitch on the very edge. Okay? And then we are going to jump back to a buttonhole stitch when we do the yellow because I like it that way.
And if you wanted to straight stitch the whole thing, you could.
Absolutely.
And if you wanted to buttonhole stitch the whole thing, you could.
And there's actually some designers who never stitch around their applique pieces.
What?
Particularly if you use batiks that are very tightly woven. A lot of people will just iron it down, fuse it, and then they just quilt over it.
Wow.
Yeah, I've never felt comfortable with that.
How's it wash? Is it?
I don't know. I haven't done it, but I know that people do. I like the buttonhole stitch. I just like the looks of a buttonhole stitch. So let me put this aside.
You can just throw it on the floor.
I caught it on my needle. There we go. Notice how she says just throw it on the floor.
Well, I know the floor's clean. The carpets just got cleaned in the office like a week ago.
You guys, I'm so fussy about throwing things on the floor.
I know it's clean,
Drives
everybody.
me crazy. Okay, so we have this threaded and we have our straight stitch selected. I'm going to bring the speed back down to slow. And again, I'm going to start at the junction here. I'm going to do a tack stitch at the beginning, maybe, if the machine cooperates, if I know what I'm doing. I'm sure that it's operator error, you guys. Okay, so.
You should read that book.
I should read the book. I have read the book, I just can't remember it. Okay, are we ready?
We are. Let me try and get a little closer for everybody.
Yes?
I believe so.
Okay, here we go. Oh, it did tag it.
And you have your stabilizer still under.
It's not happy though. It's in the middle. My stitch length is a little longer than I like. I'm gonna make it a 2.
Yeah, do you want to talk, well, as you're sewing, will you tell us about your stitch length here?
I just made it a 2 because that's kind of a normal stitch length for a straight stitch on this particular machine and maybe on yours too.
Well, I can tell you for the embroidery machine, I always do a stitch length of 2, even with a triple stitch.
Do you? Now you do want to pivot. You will have to pivot on this just like you would if you were doing a buttonhole stitch. Oh, I hit the cut button. It's in the wrong spot from where my other one is. Pivot again. I'm just afraid I'm gonna knock those tweezers in the floor. Okay. And if your pieces get in here, you can roll it up a little bit like this. It's always handy sometimes when you're doing this.
I'll show what she's talking about. There you go.
And I'm going to take another little stitch because this is, when I come to this straight line, I can kind of make it just straight right through.
Careful with your hand if you don't.
I'm sorry. Is that better?
Yep.
Okay. And one more stitch. Oh no, let's see if it tacks. It may cut too.
Maybe in the video, let's just pretend to tack.
Yeah, you guys tack your stitch, but I'll fix that.
But again, that's why in the last video we played with the machine.
Yeah, and I have a short-term memory, apparently, right, Brittany? Brittany would say that I do. Now you can speed it up a little bit when you feel comfortable.
So basically, it's like tracing 1/8 of an inch in.
Yes.
Just follow the shape of the piece.
And since you mentioned tracing, if you have an area that you're very, want it to be absolutely perfect, you can use one of those, like a sew line pen.
Oh, like the chalk pencil?
You could use a chalk pencil. You can use one of those heat erasable.
Ooh, friction.
A friction. You can use that and just draw your line if you want to, and then you just stitch right on the line. It's an extra step, but I really think that the majority of us will be able to do this without drawing a line.
Let's take a look.
Can you see it?
Oh, I like it. It looks good. Now, one thing, I mean, we don't do that on this quilt, but you can kind of go over the line again a little like off and kind of add texture with like a scribble stitch.
Yes. It's a lot of fun. And also you may have what I call a scribble stitch on your machine. This one does. You know, don't be afraid to play with different stitches on your machine to do the edge of your applique. It's fun to do that. Okay, here we go. So I think you get the idea of this. It's just repetition. And if you want to practice, just, you know, first before you do it, just cut yourself a little shape that's kind of like this petal and use, you know, of any kind of scrap fabric and practice before you do it on your real piece, you know. Or just go through it because, as they say, you see the flaws, but other people don't. Other people just see your pretty quilt and all your work that you did on it. You know, they're not critiquing it like we are. Is my finger in the way?
You're good right now.
Okay.
Pretend to tack.
Tack, tack, tack. So you see,
oh, that looks really good.
I love doing it. And it's fun to do the buttonhole stitch that way too. I mean, on these petals if you want to.
You would do exactly the same thing you did on the leaf or a straight line.
Yep.
You just follow right outside the edge, pivot to keep your stitch perpendicular to the edge, and you're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
To me, again, once you learn your machine, and if it's gonna take an extra stitch or not, once you get that rhythm down, you can do any applique project.
Absolutely. And you know, just have fun. It is fun, you know, and maybe get you a buddy to sew with. And nowadays, with our smartphones, I guess you could really, and an iPad, can't you do FaceTime on an iPad?
You can.
You could FaceTime sew together.
That's fun.
What a fun idea, huh?
You want to FaceTime sew with me?
Sure.
We're always together, y'all.
Yes. I think if I bother her at home, her husband would think, oh gosh, does she ever leave her alone? He thinks we're crazy because we talk in the car on the way home when we spent the whole day together at work.
But it's true. You got different
There's more things
to
to say, you know?
Because you're like in work mode and then you're like, oh, it's after work. Here's what I'm now thinking about.
Yeah.
Different things.
Or sometimes it's like, did you see that accident? You know,
oh, yeah.
Just different things. There was a bad accident today that I saw.
Oh, I did.
And yeah, I figured it would be gone by the time you went there, but the car was just totally squished.
Oh.
And the man was standing out there. I saw his airbags had gone off on the sides, but not the front windshield. And he was fine, just
good,
standing there looking around.
Probably shocked.
The police hadn't even gotten there yet.
Wow.
There was 3 or 4 cars involved, but anyway.
Do you mind moving that stabilizer out of the way? Thank you.
Let me get this a little tighter, everybody. We're on our last petal already. Is that good, Brittany?
That's good, thanks.
Okay.
But now your hand.
One thing or the other, you guys. We are working on getting some different equipment so that we can maybe have some multiple angle cameras.
Yeah, we're really good at sewing, everybody, and we can write some pretty good patterns. But We need to add a videographer to our team.
Yes, we do.
And now in our new office, we'll finally have the space.
We do have the space, you know.
I know. It's exciting. We'll give you a tour of our studio soon.
You guys, September 10th, we move into the new office.
That's the same day this video posts.
Oh, it is, isn't it?
It is.
Well, there you go.
So while you're watching this, we're moving.
Yeah. We'll be watching the men move everything in. Of course, as I've told the girls, you know, once we have to pack everything up and then they move it in, but then we have to unpack everything. But that's the fun part. Oh, I'm trying to take off a piece of the design of the fabric. I thought that was a thread. Okay.
Don't cut the fabric.
Yeah.
So what are we going to stitch now? Some butterfly gold?
Now we're going to stitch some butterfly gold. Now that little bit of pink right there may get hidden by some yellow.
No one can see it on the camera.
They can't? Okay, good. So sorry for my arm again, you guys. I am taking off the pink and I'm switching to butterfly gold 0567.
Which to me, 0567 we use in I think every project.
Well, we do a lot of flowers, maybe. Is that why? Flowers and bees and things.
I don't know.
I love yellow. I like yellow and things. To me, a quilt needs a little pop of yellow a lot of times. Makes it happier. Energized. Is that right?
I guess so.
Okay, one more little bit here. Let me trim this off so I can thread this. Usually have my little thread bowl here to catch my threads.
Oh, I put it on the shelf.
That's okay. Am I in? I can't see.
I can't either. You're in. Keep going.
This is where my tweezers will come in handy, you guys. Yep.
Get in there.
There we go. You guys, aren't these the cutest little tweezers? They're Tula pink tweezers in this flashy colors.
So now when you have a piece like this that's a circle, where would you start?
Wherever you want.
Well, there you go, everybody.
But
it's freestyle time.
Actually, I start where I think it's going to be less conspicuous. In this case, where it's, you know, where the pink flowers are coming out, the petals, I think that would be a little bit less conspicuous than up here in the top. So still sort
of a junction.
Yeah, so you still kind of want to think about that. Now let me get this back to my number 26 on this machine, which happens to be my little applique stitch. And this is, I can use 2.5 by 2.4, which is what I did on this, the leaf and the stem. I'm going to use that on this too. So I'm going to start right here where this petals is. I'm going to try to do my tack thing. Try, you guys.
Not going to give up on that tacking, are you?
I'm not giving up on it. Because I know it'll do it. It's just me. Okay.
Let me zoom in for everybody.
I'm slowing my speed back down. Tack, tack, tack. Look at that.
Magic. Now, are you going to pivot a lot on this one?
Yes, I am.
And you want to make sure that you pivot not on a bite in, but once it's come back out and you're about to take that straight stitch on the edge.
Yes, always pivot on the outside. Because if you pivot on the inside, or you move it, you will end up with a V. This hand?
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. We ready?
I'm trying to be very zoomed in for you all so you can see just what her machine is doing.
Pivot.
I don't know if anyone watched Friends, but there's a couch episode where they pivot and they get the couch stuck in the stairway of an apartment. Okay, your hand.
Were they bringing the couch up the stairs?
Yes, and it gets stuck. It's so funny.
I can believe it.
But they say pivot a lot.
hope those men don't have to say pivot when they move things in our building.
I think everything will fit in just fine.
Okay, good.
But you all know moving is no fun, is it? But this will be our final move.
Pivot.
Pivot. This butterfly gold matches this. This is Riley Blake Yellow Kisses. The butterfly gold is made for it, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It matches a lot of the Riley Blake yellows. And I like to snip my little threads so that when I'm coming along, I don't accidentally catch them in my piece. So I'll do that a lot. You guys can do it too if you want. Pivot. And when I pivot, of course, this is a small bit, but you want to think about where your next stitch is going to be being in line with the needle. So in other words, even though I pivoted, I don't want to pivot this way, that's wrong. I don't want to pivot, that's not enough. So you see, you want to pivot so that your next stitch will come into that.
Kind of keep your applique piece right in the center of your open toe foot.
That's a good way to say it.
That's what I'm here for, everybody.
Again.
See, like now it's getting out of center.
Yep,
So you'll
I'm going to
pivot.
pivot to bring it back. This is only going to take probably one stitch that I need, yep. And I want that to come in there just like that. See, I wanted my edge stitch to be on the edge, but I wanted my bite inside to be more perpendicular than I think it would have been. So that's why I just pivoted with one stitch and then, you know, pivoted again to make sure that that was going to come in that way. Does that make any sense?
I think so. So kind of like around the top of that, it's more curves, so you pivot more frequently, whereas the edges are more straight. So you'll have less times to pivot.
See, and I'm going to pivot right there.
And we're coming back around our circle.
And you guys, one thing that I really like about machine applique, and really all applique, once you do the stitching stitch your applique piece down, it really takes a little more dimension.
Let's see, hold on, I'm not in the frame. Sorry, everyone.
Am I? In the right spot?
That looks beautiful.
Thank you. So it seems to raise that flower center forward. It brings
It does. Let me zoom out
and
so you can see a stitched versus a non-stitched.
So you want me to pivot?
Pivot.
Here is a non-stitched blue and yellow.
Cute, but just
But it needs a little something, doesn't it? So then we have this.
Oh, beautiful.
See?
It really does add dimension.
Mm-hmm. So what you're going to do, again, the main things with stitching is follow your stitch order, and we do provide that for you in your patterns. You are going to do all 4 of your blocks, and you're going to stitch the entire piece. The greens, your petals, and your centers. That's basically the order for all of them. And that would be 16 flowers. But when you do it in little increments, like all your greens,
you'll get faster.
Yes,
you'll know where to pivot. It'll be natural flowing for you.
It does, and it's just nice. You know, I like to listen to a book sometimes when I'm stitching.
Or a Stitches of Love YouTube video.
Well, yeah, videos or
You sound like you wouldn't listen to us.
Well, no, if it's something that I want to learn, I have to concentrate more.
Oh,
so
you like
when
to just chill.
If it's something for me to learn, I'm gonna watch it more closely. But if it's just
a nice
a
book
story,
about Ireland.
a little story, yeah, with a nice little Irish accent, you know, that sort of thing.
There you go.
So, do we like our stitching?
I love it. Let me zoom in again for everybody and show it.
Now, again, you can use on your petals if you want to. Use your blanket stitch or play with your machine and use some other fancy little stitch.
You want to show us the leaf again that's stitched?
Sure. It's right here on the blue one.
So cute.
Can you see it?
That really looks good,
And
Mom.
really,
Don't y'all love that?
honestly, I'll tell you, now that I'm looking back at this, I don't even see my little things that
I
I
know
thought
where
were
your
boo-boos.
mistake is because you talked about it, but you cannot see it.
No, and when your quilt is quilted, you won't see it. So you guys, have fun.
Just have fun.
Don't worry about any type of little tiny stitch that might go in a weirdo place that you weren't completely happy with. I wouldn't suggest like picking it out necessarily, unless it's at the very end, like this little weirdo stitch that it was on my point. You know, I started here and went up to the point and then came down. I would not pick that out because it's going to break your thread, and it's going to be much more secure in the long run if you leave that all completely stitched.
Yep.
So just have fun with it, and we'll see you back. When is our next one?
The next one is the Monday following the Friday.
Which would be the
13th.
Yes.
Monday the 13th.
Monday the 13th. And what are we talking about then? We're going to be putting the blocks together?
I believe so.
That's fun too, you guys.
I think so. Or
Trimming
we might be
them up.
assembling the border blocks and then assembling the quilt top. I can't remember.
Okay. I don't remember what we did
But
next
the
either.
schedule is right on the website.
The schedule. We're all about the schedule,
The
you
schedule
guys.
is correct, everyone.
So anyway, have fun with this. If you have any questions at all, feel free to email us at orders@stitchesoflovequilting.com, and we will be happy to answer them. If you have friends who are interested in this,
it's never
just
too late
direct
to
them
do
to
it.
it, and they can always watch this on YouTube,
Yep.
which they can find at YouTube, stitchesoflovequilting.com, and then pick the...
So that's, you just type in Stitches of Love.
Oh, is that like...
It's not youtube.stitchesoflove.com.
Well, I meant that, yes, I got my
You'll
mouth.
find us.
Just go to YouTube and then Stitches of Love, and then you'll find it.
Yep.
And there will be a playlist that says...
Magic Bloomin Basics.
Magic?
No, it doesn't say magic. I was just kidding.
Oh, she's so funny, you guys. Anyway, we hope you have as much fun with this as we are having bringing this to you. So, happy stitching!
Happy stitching!